Tried to hold us back, to hold us, tried to hold us back.
We will be here forever. Do you understand? Forever.
Hey, it's Shan here. This week I speak with Bobbie Poulton. Wow, what an interesting human Bobbie is. She sits down with me and shares with rigorous honesty about her life so far. Bobbie's a former elite CrossFit athlete. She's also a former elite women's Rugby Union player, but she's much, much more than those things. I got to speak to Bobbie at a very interesting time in her life because she's an expectant mother. So we touch upon, her journey with that and how she's feeling about that. And she comes to the podcast with this beautiful courage and just like willingness to bare her soul. It was so inspirational. I loved the conversation. I must add, and I feel a responsibility to say that there's a trigger warning on this episode because Bobbie outlines the sexual abuse that she was subjected to as a child. Now, she does it in the context of her healing journey, but if this is something that may be triggering for you, I suggest that you maybe skip the first 45 minutes of the conversation. It's in there somewhere in that time frame. So thought I'd add that, but otherwise, wow, what a story. And I love stories and I love hearing people's life stories. And Bobbie's no exception to this. And as always, shout out to my children, Clementine and Otis. So enjoy.
Child of the light, styles of the neon belong to a culture destined to rock for eons. Time doesn't exist. Shut those cataracts, capture the virtualist. Now, let's get back to what makes things seem forever, whether it's unseen, unheard, or it's 16 again. Not a bother. Fill this old man river, kill a floor that gives all. Coming upstream, the quiver. Sex style, easy rock.
Out of the blue. So she went in for like a routine operation on a Friday, closer, and by Sunday she'd passed. Yeah, it's fucked. Yeah.
What a life experience that is.
And to add matters worse, my nan died 4 days before. So the two women that have most influenced me in my life passed within 5 days. Completely unexpected.
How are you coping?
What's it been now? A month and a bit. I am doing okay as well as can be. I think grieving is a unique experience that we all go through. I think that my relationship with my partner, Austin, he lost his dad. Yeah, he's a legend. He lost his dad in 2018 when we first got together. And I was his rock for that experience. I watched him go through very similar. His dad overnight went from being healthy to you've got a month left to live, passed away, living in separate countries. We were living in Hong Kong at the time. And being that rock for him through that and seeing how he managed that, I always said to him, fuck, if that happens to me, I'm fucked. I'll be allowed to swear, I don't know.
Everything's been said on here, everything.
Okay. And I remember just being like, holy shit, like if that happens to me, I'm not going to be able to cope like you. And he actually always said to me, hey, you need to prepare because this is going to happen at some point. Because my mum's been sick. Like she's got Crohn's disease. She's riddled with autoimmune. But I always just wasn't prepared for it. And then when this happened a month ago, I definitely wasn't prepared and it was a big shock. But having him by my side, knowing that I'd been his rock for his grieving process with his dad, made things so much easier because he just looked at me and was like, hey, we've done this before.
It's not your first rodeo.
Yeah. And it wasn't even it was his father that passed, but he was like, we've done this as a team. We can do this again. What do you need from me? And it was just, I didn't know what I needed, but he was there.
What an interesting time in your life because there's something else very significant happening with you.
Yeah.
And that is?
I am pregnant. Woohoo.
How many months?
I am 16 weeks this week. So 4 weeks, 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a very interesting time. Congratulations to you and Austin.
Thank you.
Going to be the raddest parents ever.
I hope so. It was, it was this kind of ironic experience where one chapter closed and another chapter was opening. And believe it or not, this is how odd this situation is. My mum went into hospital on the Friday. I hadn't told her I was pregnant yet. And she was going in just to have a colostomy bag put in. It's where they put a bag in your stomach because your own intestines and your gut isn't working properly. It's quite routine. She's had one before. She went in for the surgery on the Friday. And I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go fly home and surprise her and see her. She deserves to see me. So I spoke to her on the Saturday. She was in intensive care. And I was like, hey, Mom, I've got a surprise for you. I'm coming home. I'm going to come and sit in the hospital with you. I'm going to take you shopping. I'm going to get you better. She was so excited. I haven't seen my mum for 4 years in person. Yeah. And then something inside of me was like, you need to tell her. Like, this will give her something to look forward to. Hey, you're going to be a grandma. So I called her the next day and I was like, hey, I've got some news for you. This is exciting. And I'd gone specifically that day to the doctor and been like, I want to have an early dating scan, because you can't really get a dating scan here unless you go and specifically request it, because it was 8 weeks then, pretty early. So when I got the scan, just so I had something tangible to take back to the UK and show her, hey, Mom, this is going to be your grandkid. And I called her on Sunday morning. My Sunday evening, her Sunday morning. She was up and out of bed, sitting, next to her bed. And I just showed her the scan of the baby, and she was like grinning from ear to ear. She was like, it's about fucking time. Like, you're 33 soon. Gave me that whole spiel. And I was like, we can pick grandkid names together. I'm going to see you in 3 days. I'm going to see you in 3 fucking days. And then she passed that night. And I really feel like she was clinging on for that without even knowing. Like, she got that news because, as it turns out, what we didn't know was that when they put the colostomy bag in, they'd found cancer everywhere. Stage 4 bowel cancer. It was in her heart, her blood, her lungs. And she'd been told that, but she didn't tell us those 3 days. So she'd basically gone in for this routine operation. They said, hey, you shit hits the fan. You've got days, weeks left to live. There's nothing we can do. She didn't tell us. And then she must have known for that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then when I called her and said, I just feel like something in her was like, okay, I can let go now. And then she just passed that night.
Tell me why she was influential on you. What were her personal characteristics that really resonated with you growing up and in your adult life?
My relationship with my mum is complicated. My parents divorced when I was 3, and my dad took custody of me and my brother. And a unique situation, I think, at that time, quite often.
It's unique now.
Yeah, unique now. Again, same with my partner. We have this really weird, similar child upbringing. I'll talk about that later. And at that age, you don't really understand. You just are grateful for what your parents are doing for you. And I'm so grateful for my dad. He's incredible. I'm really, really close to him, as you would be, only daughter growing up with your dad. But what I came to realize as I became older was that he fucked her, right? Like, during the divorce, he was like, I've got the money, I've got the influence, I've got the parents. You're not having the kids, I'm going to take them from you. Took her to court.
Like, fucked her over.
Yeah, like fucked her over. Yeah. Like, just lied, said a lot of shit. Just, I don't know. I've forgiven them now, but I didn't realize this until later on. Like, holy shit, I don't think my mom ever recovered from that. Ever.
Do you feel like, as a young child, that you were abandoned by her because you didn't really understand the circumstances until later on?
There was that feeling for a while of like, because my dad had instilled into me, it's her fault. She couldn't care for you. Yeah. She left you. She left us. Because my mum ended the marriage, right? She was like, I'm done with this marriage. And he was like, well, fuck you. I'm taking the kids. I've got a house. I've got money. I've got my grandparents who are like millionaires. We're going to fucking take you to court, take full custody, screw you over.
Yeah.
And it's actually so odd. I only found out the real bones of this when I went home for my mum, who'd passed, because one of the things she left me was the divorce papers.
Interesting.
And all my life, she'd been trying to protect me and being like, just playing the bigger man, just not slagging off my dad, not saying anything, just protecting me. And one of the things she left me when she passed was like, hey, she wrote me some notes. Just, I want you to really know what happened. Like, I never left you. I never abandoned you. And it was like, I had to get emotional. It was like, holy shit, she was playing chess and we were playing checkers this whole time. This is 30 years. All the things that he's done to her, how hard it was for her as a single mom, having her kids taken away from her. And all of this time, it was just him being like, nah, fuck you. And she just kept them to give to me when I was an adult, when she's gone, so that she doesn't have to be there to be the person that talks shit about my dad. And to this day, I won't have this conversation with my dad. He just can't. He gets so stressed when I bring it up with him. And that's fine.
Did you read them?
I did.
And?
Yeah, it's shocking. It's shocking.
How does it make you feel about your dad now?
This is really recent. This is like 3 weeks ago.
Listen, I don't want to trigger you in any way, okay? But in less than 5 minutes of talking, like, I've felt emotional almost straight away. Like, you're just stabbing a knife into my own wounds on various levels, not just the divorce stuff. Because my father passed away in 2021, just in the middle of COVID.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so I'll ask the question again. Like, how have your feelings towards your father? How are they traveling now?
I'm
laughing because I just like the intensity of what's
it's a lot, isn't it? I'm still processing. Even this conversation's helping me, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm kind of processing this as we speak. There was a day where I was like, I'm not speaking to my dad. Like, I'm done with this. And I needed to process it. But even as I was reading them, my mum had left some notes like, this is 30 years ago. It's water under the bridge. Don't be angry. It is what it is. Like, I just want you to know. And it's hard, but I do forgive both of them and him. And my stepmom is involved in this. It's very messy. I forgive them because they know not what they did, right? Like, they were just truly believing in that moment that my mom wasn't capable of looking after us as a single mom, newly divorced, with not a full-time job. And he truly believed that him, with his parents, my grandparents, in their big farming estate, could look after us better. I know that he truly believed that. He didn't need to fuck her over in the process, but he truly believed that. And so I'm able to forgive him and realize, do you know what? We've all done dog shit things because our consciousness doesn't allow us to actually see what the bigger picture is, right? We're blinded by our ego. And, you know, our parents' generation, they're not very emotionally inept, I'd say. They're pretty emotionally inept, sorry. Like, I don't think empathy existed in co-parenting and relationships back then. I seldom meet someone our age who has divorced parents who get on well or co-parent in that respect. And I look back at what they did and I just think, you know what? You did the best with the knowledge that you had in that moment. And that's where I can leave it.
Do you feel you have some closure after reading those papers? Or you're still in the midst of that?
A lot of anger came up. A lot of resentment came up. A lot of like unjust of like, why? Because I watched, this is the thing, I watched my mom, this conversation, you know, it started around my mom. I watched my mom never fully heal her heart from that moment. Never. You know, my entire life, she was always broken for us kids. And what I learned from her, you know, roundabout circle, this conversation was that being a mom isn't based on how close you are, how often you see them, or how much money you have. Being a parent, I should say, not just a mom, but being a parent is not based on how much money you have, what school you send them to, how often you see them, which is what I thought it was, right? Because that's what my dad gave me. But actually being a parent is so much more than that. It is unconditional love. No matter how far away you are, no matter how little or often you see someone, no matter how much money you have, she just loved me for who I was always. And ironic, my dad, who I grew up with, it was always conditional with him, right? He gave me the world, but it came with conditions. And it took until I was in my late teens, my early 20s, an adult, a woman, to really realize that is the definition of a parent, not the primary caregiver who's there washing you, bathing you, feeding you, looking after you.
Do you think that a child needs that yin and yang, though, to see that? You know, the nurturing kindness of a mother compared to that of a conditional father helps you find a balancing point?
Do I think that? Yes, I do think so. I think that it's really influenced who I'm going to be as a mother. Probably negatively in the fact that I'm already planning to be a helicopter parent. and just over love my kids and never let them out of my sight. Like I already know, I'm like, fuck, I'm going to be the mom that I never had, you know?
You don't think they need tough love? Because you're a badass. I've seen you. I've seen you in the gym and I've seen what you do in life, sort of. You're a go-getter.
Yeah. I learned that. So here's the thing. I never had a mother figure. So I didn't learn the softer, feminine, nurturing, loving side that women and children do need. I didn't learn that. And I think that contributed to what you see now as like strong and independent and powerful was actually fear growing up. It was this like hard armor I'd wear, the tomboy, the I don't give a fuck attitude, the, you know, girls are gross, I'm better to hang with the guys, the tomboy. That was me growing up. And it wasn't until I became an adult and started healing, like where did that come from? Where are these wounds from? That I realized that actually, yeah, I probably did need that feminine, nurturing, loving role model. But again, my dad did the best that he could.
That separated parent situation, I mean, it's just commonplace. It really is. But it's deeply traumatic.
Yeah.
I feel like it's this element of society that doesn't really get enough emphasis. And, you know, the situation that occurred with your mum is horrendous.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of men out there that would say the same thing happened to them.
Absolutely.
You know, and you talked about your mother not wanting to slag off your dad. It's really interesting you mentioned that because I spoke to a child psychologist after my divorce and he said that children identify with both of their parents on a soul level. So when you do slag off the other one in front of them, they actually take it as a personal attack. And
Yes.
I don't know why I didn't consider that. So that's and that actually hurts them like that. It's not like they're sitting there going, oh yeah, well, dad is a dickhead or mum is a dickhead. It's more like you're calling me a dickhead. And
Yes.
they take it personal like that.
Yes.
I know it sounds obvious as I verbalize it, but I was like, oh, it was a light bulb moment.
No, you're right. Children develop that ego structure at that young age. In fact, children are developing their sense of self through their primary caregivers. So until they've developed this real strong sense of ego and personal identity, they're essentially hijacking their parents, right? And then as they become an adult, it's really ironic, right? We spend the early years of our lives developing this ego, and then we become an adult and we spend the rest of it dismantling it, realizing how negative it is. But as kids, we actually want them to form a really strong sense of self and a safety in their sense of self. But because they haven't formed that yet, they cling on to their parents and they take things personal. You're so right when you said that. Yeah, they find it very personal when someone speaks about their parents or even themselves, yeah.
How would you reflect upon your childhood growing up with your father as your primary caregiver? Do you have fond memories?
Mostly fond memories. So my dad was an awesome dad. Like I grew up, I'm a farm girl. I grew up in the UK. I could ride horses before I could walk. Like I literally remember having horses from 2-3 years old. There's photos of me. We had a stud. So we had 12, 13 horses at a time. My nan would breed them. Because my dad had custody and he was working, my nan, the other incredible woman who passed away that week, she raised me from an early age. And she was a cookery teacher and a horse breeder. So I spent my early years riding horses and learning how to bake cakes. It was the best fucking childhood ever.
That's the dream woman.
Right? Yeah. And then, this was happening, my stepmom ended the picture. This gets complicated now. And
How old were you when she entered the picture?
4. And just to give context here,
Delicate.
she was actually 23 at this time, which at the time and even into my teens, I didn't really appreciate the gravity of that or understand the gravity of being 23 and inheriting 2 kids. I have an older brother as well. I'm 33. I can imagine marrying a man 10 years older than me and becoming a stepmom at 23. That's fucked.
It's her choice.
As in, obviously she wasn't going to do a good job. She's 23. She's never had kids before. She doesn't, and she didn't do a good job. If you
See,
ask
that's
me.
a higher order approach to analysing that situation. You could have just sat here and go, oh, she was a nightmare. She was too young. But you're actually like, there's empathy there, right?
That's it.
That's different. Not a lot of people do that.
It again.
They want
This
to point the
didn't.
finger.
This didn't happen until my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there a big age gap between her and your dad?
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he was 23 and she was 33. No,
Or
she
vice
was,
versa.
vice versa.
So she came in when you were 4 and just integrated into your life, like living at home with you.
I remember the day she went, you can call me mum now. And from that day, I called her mum, and I had 2 mums. Think how heartbreaking that was. I went to my actual mum's house when I got to see her once a month or twice a month because my dad made it really difficult. And I'd be like, I've got 2 mums. And my mum, just heartbroken, would be like, okay, well, she's not your mum. I'm your mum. And I'd be like, yeah, but it's awesome. I've got 2 mums. I've got 2 Christmases. I've got 2 everything. And it breaks me that I just didn't. It breaks me the irresponsibility of my dad and Tracy, that's my stepmom, allowing and thinking that's okay, and even finding it funny. They would make jokes about it.
In what sense?
You know, like, this mum's better than that mum, or we can send you one that sticks with me. We can put your mum on a rocket and send her to the moon so she never comes back. That was something they said to me. I must have been like 4 or 5, like, what the fuck, bro? You don't say that to a kid.
I've had similar experiences. I had a stepmom as well.
Yeah.
But she didn't come into the picture until I was 12.
Are you close to her?
No. And it's funny. She tried, I think, for a period of time. I just never connected with her. And then the gap between us got bigger and bigger and bigger. But you're right. Like, if you take a different approach, she was young. My father was significantly older when he got with her. And she adopted 2 high-energy boys.
And can you find empathy now?
Now that you mention it, helps me. Still hard, though.
And here's the thing, you can forgive them without ever having to let them know that.
Really?
Because forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves.
That was a
right?
question I had for you. Like, how do you manage resentment? Resentment is, for me, it's my life journey. The most difficult thing for me on a daily basis is managing feelings of resentment. And they literally at times have made me sick, like physically ill. How do you do it?
So I have a lot of resentment in my life also.
Still?
So to give context, my stepmom, her father sexually abused me as a child. I just want to give complete context to this conversation.
Yep.
So not only have I got a stepmom that I don't particularly like, I've got this person that came into my life because of her who ruined my childhood. And as a child, you know how we just said you take it personally? I didn't know what to do. I've got this horrendous experience that I'm going through from the ages of like 5 to 12. I don't tell anyone until I'm an adult, until I'm like 20-something.
So it was like ongoing.
Yeah, it was ongoing for 5 years. Yeah, 6 years. And every time I see this woman, I'm like, fuck you, it's you. Like, you've brought this into my life. And this definitely has influenced, like, maybe if that hadn't happened to me, maybe our relationship would be better. I don't know. Because it's not her fault, right? But subconsciously, I blame her. I blame her entire family. I blame that experience. So on the topic of resentment, I fucking know resentment. Like, I spent 20 years of my life resentful. And the thing that really shifted it for me was I did my first Vipassana. It's a 10-day experience. You sit for 10 days. You meditate for 10 hours a day. You don't speak. You don't look at anyone. You don't read. You don't write. You don't communicate. You do nothing. It's basically like prison. It's pretty fucked. And the whole premise to this is we're suffering inherently. Almost every moment of the day, if we have an attachment to something we don't have and aversion to something we do have. Even as we're having this conversation, you know, maybe you want me to hurry up and finish because you have a question you want to ask me, right?
I work on that. So
Yeah.
keep going.
Well, right, like, so that, even that in itself is a tiny little sensation of like irritation. It's like you're not actually truly present in this moment. And resentment is just the byproduct of not truly being present in this moment. So any attachment we have of I want this, I want this, I want this, builds this, we call it sensation, right? It's like this uncomfortable sensation. It could be need, greed, want, desire, lust, whatever it might be. And then aversion is like, I don't want the reality that I have right now. I wish my reality was different. I wish something could speed up. I wish I could get something. I wish I could get away from this person. I don't like this food. I don't like. I've got pain. I have an aversion to what actually is. And resentment is just one of those. All right? We resent the reality of what life actually is in this present moment, and we can't accept that. And I've done 4 Vipassanas now, so I've done 400 hours of sitting. Yeah, it's
Sorry, so how many weeks at a time? 1 week
you
at a time?
do 10 days
at a
10
time.
days at a time.
No talking.
No talking's the easy part. Yeah, no talking.
Fasting? Do you fast?
You fast. Yeah, you eat from 6 a.m., one meal, and then another meal at 11 a.m., and then you're done. And it's all vegetarian. That's actually the easy part. No talking is quite nice, actually. The hardest part is the sitting, because you meditate for 10 hours a day.
So physically demanding, like
Physically.
like your knees and your ankles and
Your back.
your back.
Yeah. And just no communications. You're not even allowed to make eye contact. You don't have any pens or paper. You're not allowed to read or write. It's set up in a way so that every second of your day, if you are not present, you're suffering.
Interesting. Does the pain of the crossed legs and the sore back keep you in the present moment?
Well,
Does it help with getting you in the present moment? Because you're like, it's immediate. It's right
what's
there.
pain?
Well, I'm talking about the physical pain.
But physical pain is just, there's no such thing as physical pain. The pain you feel is your aversion to that sensation that you're experiencing in your body right now, your thought about it, right? So who you are on day one, when you go into your first day, it's like a fucking shock. You know, you sit in blocks of 2 hours or 1 hour or 90 minutes. So you're never meditating for like 10 hours straight. The longest you'll meditate, I think, is 2.5 hours at once. You do that once a day. So your blocks are always 2, 3, 1 hours. That's really hard when you first start. And initially you're in a lot of physical pain. But what happens is as you become better at not attaching to the aversion and not attaching to the attachment that you want, pain disappears because pain is just in our mind. Suffering is optional, right? Like pain, if it's a physical sensation, you still have you have a choice whether to attach to that. People don't think they have a choice, but you have an absolute choice as to whether you want to experience pain or not.
Okay, so what do you do then when you make that choice to go? Is it just a repetitive mantra in your mind saying, I refuse to be in pain here?
No.
Or where do you go in your mind then in that context?
So if you imagine like a second hand on a clock face, like tick, 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 and every second you were just in this present moment. You weren't thinking. There was no thoughts. There was no attachment to how painful the sensation was. There was no desire. There was no need. There was no greed. There was no aversion, no attachments. For a second. It didn't matter if you were in absolute, I'm going to air quote, agony, physical agony.
Yeah.
For a second, you could just get your focus, right? Imagine becoming so good at that. Imagine being able to increase that second to 2 seconds and then 3 seconds. And then no matter what is going on in your physical reality, your ability to remain not attached or adverse to anything increases as you strengthen that. You could call it your mindfulness muscle, but really what we're talking about is your ability to just remain without attachments or aversions. And what starts to happen is you get better at it. So on day one, you can barely do 5-10 seconds. Truly, you can barely do that without a thought popping up or an aversion or an attachment or a sensation physical in your body. But by 5, by 6, by 7, by day 10, you can sit for 2 hours and it's gone and there's no pain. There's by day 10, if, I won't give away too much about it, but if you follow it correctly, you're able to transcend your physical body with like the particles of everything that is around you. And it's like you're tripping balls. Like, I don't know anyone here who's done psychedelics. You're absolutely tripping balls, but you're sober. It's the most strangest experience I can even describe.
Would you say you feel more connected to your environment and nature? Is that what's occurring?
More connected to your body, potentially, I could say.
Okay.
Because nature is actually distracting, believe it or not, when it comes to Vipassana.
Right.
You want to have zero. Any distraction is an avoidance of what's going on right now.
Once the Vipassana's finished, how long does that enlightened feeling linger for in the real world when you go back to it?
It depends. When you leave, they encourage you to do an hour in the morning and an hour at night.
Yeah.
Which the first time I did it, I continued that for about a year.
Really?
And then
So disciplined.
life happens. It's hard, right? So now I do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, almost every day. But I've definitely lost the, like right now, if I were to sit, I can't distinguish like I just feel my physical body, right? Whereas if I'd come back from Vipassana, I could sit here and I could blend into the surround. It's so hard to explain. Like I would feel like the particles of my body like moving in and around me. It's such a unique sensation. There's no shortcut. There's no help. There's no crutch. There's nothing. It is just you, and you have to remain present for every second of every day for 10 days straight. And every second that you're not present, you suffer. And I just love, like, at the end of those 10 days, you know that you did that healing.
Yeah.
No plant medicine, no psychology, no coach, no mantra, no music, no humming, no visualization, nothing. You're not any of that. You and everything that you possess within you right now was able to go through that hardship and meet those parts of yourself. And it's really interesting. You use the language of these things came up for you. We call them sankharas.
Okay. I've never heard that term.
So in Vipassana, it's called sankhara. These are your deep traumas that you have experienced and you haven't processed them, so you suppress them. And then finally, when you sit for hours and hours and hours and hours with no distractions and people and thoughts, they arise and you get to deal with them. And the moment you attach, let's say like a traumatic experience comes up, right? Rather than attaching to it and getting emotional, you're not allowed to. You can't react. You can't move. We sit in what's called adhata, which is strong determination. So you're not even allowed to flinch a muscle for 2 hours. After a few days, you don't get thrown into that straight away. And you just remain present. And you heal it through your ability to not attach to it or become adverse to it. You know, and a lot of us want to cry and scream and shout. And there is a lot of emotion that does come up while you're there, but you don't react to it. It's not encouraged that you have this big emotional breakdown and move through it. It's actually seen as like that's easier for you to move through that emotion.
Yeah. I'm on my third day of a fast. I've fasted for 3 days, haven't eaten, just water.
Wow.
And
just FYI, I watched you work out extremely hard last night, so I'm very impressed.
And it's funny, I've been going through a very, I guess, a condensed version of what you're talking about. Even today, all day I'm like, I should just eat before Bobbie gets here. I'm not going to be able to do this podcast. My brain just started telling me all that. And, you're going to make yourself sick. When I know that the science behind doing a 3-day water fast. And I want to disclaim, I'm not a medical professional. Don't go and fucking do it. Go and do your own research before you do it. And everyone's body's different. I did this based on what I know my body can handle, FYI. But it's amazing the narratives my brain started creating, even though I know the science of it. But what I've found, especially in this second half of the day, I'm just finding this insane clarity, and I've been so productive and in the present moment more than I have been in months. And I've started thinking about my father and my dad and my situation, and feeling this deep sense of peace. And I feel like fasting is sort of bringing that up for me today. It's really bizarre.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's almost like I want to go another day.
I'm not a doctor either, but I can speculate that because your body is not wasting energy on breaking down food and converting carbohydrates into energy, that you are even more present, right? Like your body is actually having to work really hard when we're breaking down food and taking energy from it. But if you've had no food, you are having to be present. You are having those thoughts come up for you, and you're having to, not have an attachment to eating and not an aversion to the discomfort you might be in. So without even realizing it, you're practicing a Vipassana of sorts, right? Every single time that thought arises of, I should just eat, that's an attachment. Or, I feel hungry, that's an aversion.
Yes.
And every time you move through it, you've practice Vipassana and whatever, and
really?
you've healed that without even realizing, right?
That's what I noticed because I'm like, I've got more time because I don't have to think about planning my next meal. Don't have to clean up, don't have to wash up, don't have to go shopping.
That's why I was saying I like to work at 5, 6 in the morning because it's my most creative time, because when I'm fasted, I'm much sharper.
You got that. They call it keto because I've done a fair bit of research on it. Like your body goes into a state of ketosis, you function on ketones, and they call it keto clarity apparently. So have you, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but has plant medicine been a part of your journey or not really?
Not in terms of ayahuasca, but psilocybin, yes. And just psychedelics in general, LSD, psilocybin.
For healing purposes or party purposes?
Both.
Okay, yes.
Well, as a young kid, personally, I absolutely think it's ridiculous and irresponsible that we have 18-year-olds walking around with tabs of LSD. It actually blows my fucking mind.
It's the wrong setting.
It's just so terrifying. I've seen the power of what those substances can do in the wrong hands with big egos, and I just don't think children should be playing with those substances. I think they're extremely dangerous.
It definitely levels their ego out though. They learn pretty quick.
Yeah, well, they learn not to do it again. But since doing Vipassana, I am less inclined to practice or to work with them, because I don't need to when I can achieve the same result. It takes longer with a bit more discipline, but I come up against the same sankaras, I would call them.
You know, the ironic thing for me is like I have no desire to ever do them again. It's bizarre. Like I don't feel called to do it. I'm not anti them. Ironically, Australia's just legalised psilocybin and MDMA. Have you heard about that in psychedelic assisted therapy? And I did have a psychologist on here outlining it for everyone. That was the episode with Mark Baxter and Melissa Erie. That was really intriguing. And he talked about how it should be part of an overall plan, part of a piece in the jigsaw puzzle. It shouldn't be something you do that's going to solve your problems. It should be, and so much of it comes back to discipline, you know. But it's funny, I just have no desire to do it, and I get more. I mean, this concept of a higher power. I was never a religious person or a believer in God or anything like that. It's only been in recent years it's becoming more and more predominant. And I find when I do fast, I feel more connected to something else. I can't explain it.
Removes a barrier for you?
Yeah, I feel like there's a higher power looking after me. And even today I was walking around and I just felt at peace and I was with something. It comforted. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
You're making me want to do a fast now.
But do your research. No, and you're pregnant. So.
Yes, but we're not doctors.
We're not doctors. Yeah, just relaying experiences.
I think something I'll add is that because of my childhood, because of the trauma that I experienced, from an early age, I was experimenting with recreational drugs, Class A drugs, cocaine, pills, I don't know, MDA, what do we used to call it? MCAT, speed back in the day, I don't know. And I was really irresponsible as a child. You know, I grew up very quickly. From the age of 15, I went down this huge spiral, moved out of home, drugs, partying, working full time, self-harm, all the things. And all of this was just me suppressing this horrendous experience that I'd been through as a young child that I was terrified to even tell the world, you know. Anyone who's experienced sexual abuse or sexual trauma knows that the shame that comes with that you would rather die than anyone on the planet realize this has happened to you. That's the truth. It's like you are so ill-equipped at that age to process that it's not you are a bad person, it's bad things happen to you. You know, it's not you are bad, it's what happened to you. And it wasn't until I played with even recreational drugs, you know, they actually did help me initially. You know, we all had Molly and been hugging and kissing our friends. Like, it was those experiences that brought up a lot of my trauma because I suppressed it for years and years. It wasn't until I was maybe 19, 20 at another horrible experience. And it wasn't until those recreational drugs just flashbacked these memories that I'd had. And it was like, holy shit, And obviously I was a bit mature then, still a rat bag, 19, 20, partying, going out at uni. But I was like, okay, I need to deal with this shit. So I continued to self-harm and take drugs and fuck around for a few years. But I started, going to counseling and therapy and realizing that, okay, I'm not a bad person. I just do bad things because I don't know how to process all these things that have happened to me. And it was those recreational drugs, I truly believe, that opened up. And we talk about recreational drugs, but really we're talking about what's been just made legal for psychedelic assisted therapy.
Yeah.
So I was using them unregulated, dysregulated.
Yeah.
But they gave me that insight. And then as I matured and met different humans on their journey, I actually did a year's sober in 2017. It was one of the best things I ever did. And when I came back from that, I was different. And I no longer wanted to do recreational drugs in that respect. And that's when I started just experimenting with psychedelics and psilocybin especially, and ketamine trips, and like this other side of like exploring your subconscious, and not in a way to numb and disassociate and hide, but as a way of like, okay, what else is there? I'm ready.
That's what I think a lot of people don't understand is those things aren't numbing anything. They're actually heightening everything. And it's most of the time a really uncomfortable experience. There's no euphoria there. It's yucky. It's scary at times. It can be funny, but it's like the whole process and the full spectrum of your emotions come out. Do you mind if I ask when you started talking about the abuse that you received? Can you tell me, like, when did you have the confidence to start talking about it with people and disclosing it?
Yeah. So trying to put the timeline together. So my now partner, now fiance, now baby daddy. We met in 2014 in Hong Kong. He was my boss. I was dating someone else at the time. And the person I was dating was just emotionally unavailable. Lovely guy. Don't say anything bad about him. But he was a very wealthy human is what I'll say. And I don't mean like wealthy. I mean like private jets, like next level.
It was balling.
Balling, yeah.
Damn.
So I had this very unique experience. At 24 years old, I end up dating this person who is, I've never experienced wealth like this. Like never. I'm talking like 100 million pounds worth, like shit ton of money. And so what comes with that is a relationship where there's not much depth to it, believe it or not. Because you just buy happiness. You want to go to Japan first class? Sweet. You want to go to Gucci and buy a handbag? Sweet. Oh, you feel upset? Let's just go to this Michelin star restaurant? Sweet. Oh, we'll go to my house in Portugal? Sweet. And I was dating this person, and he really came in at a time that I needed saving. I was kind of really spiraling with my trauma and drugs and trying to work through it, but not really being able to work through it, and feeling disempowered. I had disordered body image and disordered eating, and I was training to be a CrossFit athlete, and then all this shit happened. I ended up breaking my back. I don't know if you know this. I had surgery. So this was all happening around that time.
Keep going.
Met this person. Hey, I'll come in. You got the Willy fucking Wonka golden ticket. I'm like a multi-millionaire. My family are billionaires. We're sweet. I was like, sweet, this is awesome. And so my life kind of got easier, believe it or not, right? It becomes a bit easier. And when you've experienced trauma, you're constantly living in this fight or flight, constant survival mode. And so you suppress a lot of it. When my life became not survival mode, because I had everything I could ever fathom at the click of my fingers, my trauma started to resurface. I'd have drinks, I'd have flashbacks. It'd be like 3, 4 in the morning, and I'd be that fucking crazy chick crying her eyes out, like trying to tell people what had happened to me, but it was just messy and yuck, and like, you don't want to know that. Except this one person, my now baby daddy, was there for me. And he just said,
So, okay, there for you in a drunken state talking about that? Or?
Yeah, he was my boss / my friend, so we would hang out quite a bit. We started a business together. So it was not uncommon for us to spend time together. But I'd just start opening up. And he didn't really pry. He'd let me share, and this would go on over a few months period. And eventually I just shared with him, like, hey, this happened to me. And it was like, you can imagine, like 10 beers deep, drunk, don't really remember it the next morning, woke up in like complete fucking shame, like, oh my God, I shared this shit. But he was the first person I told, ever. And he just made it so safe of just like, hey, like I've got whatever parts of you bring to me, like they're all welcome. They're all valid. There's no shame here, like you're safe. And that was the start of it. That was the start of like, holy shit, there's one person on the planet I can tell, and like, I'm not going to die. I don't need to kill myself. I don't need to hide. I don't need to like pretend that this didn't happen. And that was like, I can't, the relief, the feeling of safety that I'd never, ever, ever felt. Truly, I'd never actually experienced safety in my entire life like that. Purely this drunken conversation, having this man sit opposite me and say, hey, what happened to you is not your fault, and I'm here for you, and it's okay. And I will never tell another soul if you don't want me to.
It's interesting that you felt comfortable enough to tell him that.
Mm.
Was it a slow development in comfortability? Or would you think that maybe there was just like a soul identification with him?
Well, I would say he's my soulmate.
I can tell. You guys are like a power couple.
Yeah.
Power lifters, power lifers.
I mean, that's another conversation because the relationship's hard, right? Like people always assume, oh, you have this perfect relationship. It takes work. It takes a lot of work. When
I hear that. Don't ask me a thing about relationships.
Okay.
That's it's official. I've never made one successful.
I'm trying to think about it as you asked me the question. What made it seem so safe? I think it was just non-judgment.
Yeah, okay.
Non-judgment and male closeness, but like it not being sexual. You know, at that time it was just, hey, I'm here for you and it's safe. Because for any of your listeners or anyone who's not aware, if you've been through sexual abuse or sexual trauma, you can kind of go either or ways. You end up being extremely promiscuous in your way as a way to kind of like take back your power. You know, these men did this to me. I'm going to, fucking have sex with everyone. And you end up with these women that are extremely promiscuous and they kind of own it and they take that on board. Or you have other side of that where you become like extremely fearful of men and you're very like suspicious.
Okay. Do you think like that promiscuity is a strategy to re-empower themselves?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I did.
Like taking the power back.
Yeah. And it's unconscious, right? So you are somehow taking back your power from this, in my instance, a male that took it from you. And a lot of sexual abuse survivors, a lot of children who've been sexually abused will become extremely promiscuous in their teen years because they don't really understand why, but they just feel this innate need to take back their power of their sexuality. You'll find a lot of people who've been sexually abused end up being sex workers, working in the sex industry, because it's their way of taking back power, right? And this is, a very common story. When I was working as a female empowerment coach, I'd work with a lot of sex workers or women who had been through trauma and were now kind of reintegrating, as we say, functional back into society. And, excuse me. And, for me, he was this person who was just a solid. He was just safe. And when I shared it with him, he didn't run. He didn't come in and try and smother me. It was just like, sweet. Objectively, that's what happened to you. Our relationship doesn't change. Where do you want to go from here? Do you want to never tell anyone else again? Do you want to tell someone? And then over time, I would share more. And he encouraged me to try and tell my partner at the time. And of course, that was a disaster because, it wasn't emotionally at that level. And that was kind of the start of the breakdown of that relationship, actually.
Okay.
It was like, okay, I tried to convince myself, like, I've got this Willy Wonka ticket, this guy is going to give me the life I've always wanted, never have to work ever again.
Because that's what we're conditioned to think is success and happiness.
Yeah.
We are conditioned that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm 24 and I've got a fucking private jet. Like, are you joking?
It's insane.
It's insane,
I'm
right?
so glad you're talking about it, though.
I know. And so I called my dad and I was like, Dad, hey, I'm going to break up with Ali. And he was like, are you fucking mental? That's my retirement. He's like crying on the phone, like, don't do it. Just get a prenup. Just marry him. And I'm like, I can't do that, Dad. Like, trust me, I'm not in love with him. And he's like, just do it.
dad. No.
Bless your dad. Bless your dad. I actually remember being like, hey,
Has he got a bit of a geezer accent?
we're from the West Country in England. So he's like, all right, my lover, how's it going? That's Gertlash, isn't it?
Oh, because I was like envisioning him saying like just how he would have said like, don't do it, sweetheart. Don't do it.
Nah, we've got like, we're like a Bristolian Southern accent.
Okay.
Yeah. I just said to him, I said, hey, you got to trust me on this one. You got to trust me.
That's bold.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people wouldn't have stepped away from that out of sheer fear. You know, you can't buy that kind of security.
Yeah, it was hard. I know this sounds really surface level, but it was one of the scariest things I ever did leaving that relationship.
But what sparked it was the feeling that you couldn't disclose something as heavy or as significant as that. It
was intimacy, right? Like I ache for intimacy. Into me, you see.
Oh, I've never heard that analogy. How have I not heard that?
So
I'm not hanging out with the right people.
I ache. It's my love language.
I gotcha.
Like just being intimate with all humans. And I just couldn't have that level of intimacy with him. You know, we were living together, sleeping together, but there wasn't that level of intimacy. I couldn't let him see into me. There was too much fear there.
Yeah.
And I knew that the person to spend the rest of my life with was not going to be the person I couldn't feel safe intimately with.
And when we talk about intimacy, you're not really talking about the physical aspect.
No, I'm talking about into me. You see my soul. You see what I've been through. You see my experiences. You see my pain. You see my happiness. You see my wildness, my feral, and you're still just there.
But you weren't willing to bear that to him either, because a lot of people do close that off. So it became apparent that you weren't willing to open that up to him.
Yes, and I started using cocaine as a way to avoid that.
Oh, jeez.
Massively. I was a functioning cocaine addict for about 5 years living in Hong Kong.
How'd that end up?
Well, when you got a shit ton of money, it's quite easy to be a functioning cocaine addict. Not great. Yeah, really not great, because Hong Kong's a weird place for anyone who's lived there. It's like this bubble.
I've heard.
Where there's no responsibility and no repercussions, and you have this disposable income to just do all the fuck you want with, and you live
quite affluent, yeah.
Very affluent, yeah. There's a big gap between like the rich and the poor, and they just live on top of each other. And so you just live this wild, materialistic, fast-paced, toxic, high-octane lifestyle. And in order for me to cope with the fact that I had everything on paper but not everything that I needed, I would just take drugs all the time. Like I would be doing them in the bathroom at like 10 a.m., go to work. We'd be on the couch watching a movie and I'd just sneak off to the bathroom and do like a bump of cocaine and sit down. Like it was mental. Like now that gives me the horrors.
I can't imagine it because you're such a you're just so health. You exude good health. Listen, I want to ask you something, but I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask it. I'm just trying to think how to ask it in a way that's kind and also responsible. What advice would you give to someone that may be currently suppressing or something that happened to them that was similar to that happened to you?
Good question. Now I want to give a responsible answer.
Well, maybe frame it in a way that is just linked to your own experience.
Yes.
I don't want to put you in a position where like you're the authority on this.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're not, but you've had this life experience, and it played out certain ways. If you had your time again, how do you think a healthy way would be to start to open up about it and face up to it?
I think the hardest step is acknowledging that it happened to you, and 99% of the time you are behaving in a way that's maladaptive. Your coping behaviors are not positive. They're not conducive to who you want to be. They're probably hurting the people you love, the people you care about, whether you're lying, stealing, cheating, whatever, some sort of physical addiction, emotional addiction, behavior patterns that you have. They're as a result of what happened to you. They're not who you are. And so usually the levels of shame that initially come from this experience that you went through, that's actually gone. You're not even thinking about that for years. You forget it actually. But what you are dealing with is the ramifications of the choices that you're making because of what happened to you. And so the shame that gets built up of, you know, you lose friends, you hurt people, you hurt yourself, you make dumb decisions, you might get arrested, you might steal shit, you might take drugs, lose your job. Like, so you're dealing with the secondary shame, not the primary shame. And the first step is just acknowledging, well, hang on a minute, all this stuff that I'm experiencing right now that's stressing me out, that's just the symptom, right?
Gotcha.
And so you've got to take a moment and pause and be compassionate enough to see yourself as, hey, I'm actually this person down here who had this happen to them. And that's the most important thing. And yes, obviously, you're responsible for the behavior that you've been, you know, the actions, the ramifications of your actions.
I can't believe you said that. Because I used to use things that had happened to me in my childhood as an excuse for my behavior. And it's bullshit. Like, I still had to own my behavior, but I'm like, well, you know, no wonder. And that actually drove a lot of my heavy drinking and drug use and partying, because I was like, yep, this is the best I can do. And I think it was just a really easy way out.
But it was the best you could do.
Okay.
In that moment. Because if you could have done better, you would have done better. You weren't ignorant to the fact that, hey, I have this choice over here, but I'm going to choose this choice. A lot of people think that that's the case. But when your actions are stemming from suppression or trauma, big T trauma, little t trauma, you are genuinely doing the best that you can in that moment. Unless you have been diagnosed with some sort of personality disorder, narcissism, sociopath, like, you are doing the best that you can. Even if you're being a dickhead, even if you're stealing, lying, cheating, like, most of the time, that is a maladaptive coping behavior that you are using, because that is actually safer than the alternative. And so you're running away. You're running away from yourself. You're running away from sitting with the fact that, hey, I'm doing this because of what happened to me. That's terrifying. I'm just going to do this shit and not deal with the repercussions. That's easy. It's so fucking easy to be a shitbag and take drugs and drink and fuck around and not be responsible. That is like the piss easy choice that everyone takes. The hard choice is sitting down and going, do you know what? I'm doing this because this happened to me, and that's why no one does it.
You are very much a human who lives consciously. I can just tell, like, even the fact that we're having these conversations and you relaying some of your experiences and things you do, the desire to even do Vipassana, that says to me that you're a conscious person, living consciously, thinking about your choices. Do you think if some of those bad things that happened to you didn't happen, that you would be this way?
That is a good question.
Because I want to kind of flip the script. It's like, was it, you know, were these, if we flip it, can we look at it as maybe, no, I won't say a gift, but maybe a positive thing that has propelled you
I do think that
living better.
I was just having this conversation actually.
Oh, yeah?
So this is complex and I'm going to try and explain.
Okay.
I think it's convenient that we can rely on spirituality and conscious experiences to say, oh, well, isn't it convenient? You know, it was meant to be. You learnt from it. Like, oh, God created us this way. Fuck off. Like I'm spiritual, but still sometimes I go, oh, isn't that a convenient answer? Like, oh, we can learn from it. It's like, I don't have the answers, Shannon, but
I know you don't.
Often I think that, and it goes back to suffering. Often I think that if we have something, consciousness, you know, being a conscious person, spirituality, it negates the suffering of the realities of life is just fucking shit half the time. Yeah. And it's great the other half. And often I come back to that kind of more pessimistic, nihilistic even view, I guess, of like, life's just fucking shit half the time and it's great half the time and you ain't got no fucking choice what happens to you. Like, that's it. And then the other half of me is like, oh, well, you know, I was this child that had this experience that I could learn from it and grow and become this mother. And like, isn't that fucking convenient, mate? Like, you know? So I don't know what the answer is. And some days I'm in one camp and other days I'm in the other camp. But I do think that there will be a catalyst for each of us. A divorce, a breakup, a trauma, a rock bottom, something.
No one's immune.
No one's immune. No one. And those people that think they're immune, they're not immune. They're also living some sort of lie to themselves.
I'm more scared of those people. Like you said, Austin said to you, like, I accept you dirt and all, They're my people. Like the people that are actually honest and upfront and raw about it, they're my people. The ones that say, oh, no, everything's perfect. I'm like, get away, you scare me.
That was my ex. That's why it was so scary. He was like, life's... He'd never...
Was he a happy person?
Yeah, very happy.
But really?
Well, that's the thing. But really.
Was he...
He was an angry person sometimes.
Interesting. Was there a depth to him though?
There was like a grey nastiness that if you crossed them... When you've got that much money, people are pretty scary. They're living in like another level. They have a new rule book that we don't have access to.
Yeah, I've been around those people. Yeah. Some of the ugliest people I've ever met.
And I would be fearful. But I'd meet people like that, his friendship group. I'm not going to say anything bad. He's a lovely human. But it would be like, he didn't understand what anxiety was. Personally.
Because he'd never had to want for anything.
Yeah, we never had to worry.
As a kid, was he born into money?
Born into money.
Yeah, that's hard.
But even kids don't even know if you've got money or not, really. Like kids
don't give a shit.
They don't give a shit.
That's what I've learned. I thought they don't even care.
They don't know, yeah.
It's interesting. How would you define your version of spirituality? What's Bobbie's spirit? You mentioned before, you're like, I'm a spiritual person. What does that look like?
It's definitely evolved over the years. I've gone through moments of like deep woo-woo. I'm going to just fucking masturbate in a cage all day. Cave, not cage. Cave all day and just manifest Bentleys and like I'm just going to meditate and like life's like this and God will bring me this and like, oh my God, I don't have to do anything and money's just going to come to me. Like I've gone like so far down that spectrum. Like that's too far also, I personally believe. And then I've done the whole fucking materialistic, like I'm just going to buy a shit ton of cocaine and not deal with my shit because that's what God provided me with that as well. So, ooh, lucky me. Right? Like, and I think that for me, spirituality is just, there's a book, is it Tao Tai Ching, which is like the middle way. So me and Austin really subscribe to this now, having gone through those journeys and paths and all the spiritual things and the trainings and coaches and counselors. I think there's this like spectrum of mental health from like acute psychiatry at one end and medicine to like Reiki and energy healing on the other, and everything else we can think of is along that spectrum somewhere. I've fucking been up and down riding that train a lot. And I've found that, the middle way is the best. So I dip my foot in life and progressiveness and AI and business and politics and make sure I stay grounded. And then when I spend too much time in that and making money and running a business, I realize, holy shit, I've forgot like the spiritual path.
Okay.
And then I'll go and dip my toe in spirituality and I'll go and spend time doing Vipassanas and retreats and do detoxes and get rid of my phone and I'll increase my meditation and I'll go and spend time with the spiritual people. But I really believe that spirituality is just your own unique experience of what this physical reality is for you. Mm-hmm. Me and Austin subscribe to something called panpsychism.
Interesting. Please elaborate.
I'm going to butcher it. I'm not an expert, but essentially panpsychism is the belief that consciousness itself was here before anything physical, and we are just consciousness itself experiencing itself. That is what some people say God, right?
Yeah.
Greatest order of desire, God. People use different terms, higher self. So I believe that, I'm conscious, this table is conscious, the chair is conscious. We'll have these different levels of consciousness, and my only role, whether it be collectively as this tiny little pea in relation to the rest of the universe, is just to evolve consciously, to heal my trauma. And when I die, my consciousness will pass on into someone else or something else, and that's my belief system. Okay. But again, that's fucking convenient.
It's convenient? What do you mean it's convenient?
Like, because if we don't believe that, if we don't subscribe to something, then life's just fucking shit.
I just think it's a nicer way to live.
Yeah.
Because no one really knows. And what you're saying very much aligns with most of the, religious denominations in various forms. They're saying similar things.
I just believe that spirituality is another religion. I know that pisses people off sometimes, and I'm very spiritual.
Oh, it is.
But it's just a way to subscribe and move through your life and the world in a way that has some values and structure and ethics and morals, and it's another way of controlling masses of people. That's it. I just think that spirituality and religion are exactly the same, and I don't say I'm religious. I don't particularly agree with some religions. I think there's some great lessons that we can learn, just like some aspects of spirituality I think are a bit.
Have you ever read the Bible?
Do you know I've not ever read the Bible?
And there's a reason why I ask you this. But keep going.
Because I wasn't allowed to go to religious studies when I was at school.
Interesting.
My dad was a very strong atheist, I think the word we would use now.
Right.
You know, very anti-religion, anti-other cultures. I'm from a very rural white area in the UK. I would even say racist, to be fair. You know, my house would have flags with the Cross of St. George and the Union Jack. I didn't see a black person until I was 14 or 15. I didn't travel. It was very, very like privileged farming countryside. And my dad was scared of religion, right? He'd be like, fuck that. I don't need any of that stuff. So every time religious studies was on at school, he'd just write a letter and it influenced me negatively because when I got to my teenage years, now I fucking love learning about other cultures and religions and spirituality. And I do read bits of the Bible here and there. And I have friends who will send me Bible studies and I take it on board. And I think there's so much we can learn. But I never got that experience growing up because my dad wouldn't let me. You know, if there was a school trip to like a mosque, he'd fucking lose his shit. He'd be like, you're not going there. Like, it was a really weird experience. And I never questioned it because I was a child. Right?
Yeah. And that's the same for me. I mean, it's the most sold book of all time. And I was very much like anti-Christianity. I had a bad experience as a kid and I was always like, oh, no way. And I wouldn't step near it. But then as I've got older and actually through the podcast, I keep meeting guests, not actually even knowing that they're from a Christian background, but there was just something about them and they're really cool and they seem to have this beautiful life and almost like a life that I'd like. And then as you get to know them, they're like, yeah, I'm a Christian. And then I just started thinking about and researching it. Like there's like 2.4 billion Christians. I'm like, man, like it's pretty popular. And then, and so I'm like, and I've never read the Bible. So I've started reading the Bible just out of curiosity. And it's a pretty interesting document. I can see why it's the most sold book. It's obviously very easily misinterpreted as well. But what I've learned is like so many of the memes and shit I see and even like common sayings that we have in our world are just taken from the Bible. I didn't even know, and I even use them. Like, you know, even things like turn the other cheek, you know, and things like that. It's like we use these day to day, but they're straight from the Bible. It's just like, wow, it's so in our vernacular and we don't even realize. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And even some of those spiritual, like we're talking about spirituality that's not defined, and even in yoga practice that I've done over the years, I've seen like a lot of it, some of the teachings are from the Bible.
Yeah.
Anyway, just an observation.
Because they're all just teaching us to be better humans, right? It's like a set of values.
What I find really interesting is I'm not a controversial podcast, and I get a lot of love out of it actually. But the times that I get negative feedback or negative comments, and I had a 5-star rating on Spotify forever, and then it wasn't until I started having a few Christians on the podcast talking about their faith, that's when the nasty emails came and the nasty DMs came, and that was when my rating dropped all of a sudden. And I'm just like, it really confronts people.
It is confronting.
Gets them fired up.
I have to say, and this is just my experience.
Yep.
I have a few close friends who have experienced growing up in the Christian faith. And actually, since moving to Australia, I've met a few who've been involved in the Hillsong Church here. And nearly all of them have left because they've had a horrendous experience.
Yeah, I know people that have been there.
But I also know people who are still there and they love it and it's incredible and they've got this amazing, like you said, family unit, and it makes you think, I want to be part of something like that. So Yeah, I just now observe with a lot of respect, and I'm totally willing to learn from other cultures and religions.
Oh, I also love Hinduism. Like when I lived in Bali, and just I love the Hindu culture. Their whole life is prayer and ceremony.
Yeah.
It really is. It's insane, and it just gets in you. You feel it.
I think that's interesting that a lot of the non-believers, shall we say, agnostic even, are quick to judge, right? But the good thing about religion and spirituality is that there's some moral code, there's some construct, there's ethics, there's rules, there's some way of living that encourages you to be a better person. When you don't have that, that's when we often go off the rails because we don't have these set of morals and rules. And that's what I lacked, right? That's what I lacked growing up. I had no religion. I had nothing to live by. There was no set of morals. No one instilled into me what was morally right or wrong. No one instilled that it was bad to lie. No one taught me that you shouldn't harm your own body. No one taught me.
Interesting.
I was very much just this kind of feral child running around, living life, figuring it out. My dad was fun, right? I could just do what I wanted. He was my dad. I was his only daughter. He was like, sweet, you want to do this? You can do this, like. We would drink from an early age in England. I don't know if that's the same here. But
definitely here. Same here.
So I'd be drinking around the farm from like 12, 13 years old. It was always like have a glass of wine with dinner from that age. And then we started making our own cider. We had an orchard at my house. So I'd go down and pump out and siphon out the cider from like 13, 14 years old, drinking and it's just, drink's the gateway drug, right? It leads to everything.
It really is the gateway drug.
And so I just didn't really have any bumper rails as a kid.
Bumper rails, good enough.
I didn't have any bumper rails. And I think that religion, regardless of what religion, does provide that, especially for teenage boys and girls who are figuring out their way. And you're a teacher, you must see this all the time, right?
Kids need boundaries.
They need boundaries. They need
boundaries. Make them feel safe.
Yes.
Surprising.
I honestly seldom had boundaries growing up.
Wow. How have you turned out so good?
A lot of mistakes.
I think a lot of discipline as well. So I think some people are just born with this innate self-discipline. I feel like you have it.
I think so. The one thing that was instilled in me, interesting, is discipline. From the age of 3 years old, I had horses. No matter how tired I was, I woke up and I mucked out 5-6 horses before school. It was a non-negotiable. Even as like a little kid. When I think about me having a kid now and me making my 5-year-old wake up in the freezing cold and go and muck out horse poo and ride horses before school, I'm like, that's child abuse. But for me, it was like, you fucking get up when it's pitch black and you put on your school uniform underneath your overalls and you go down and you clean up shit for horses before you go to school and you ride them and you finish school and you come home and you do the same thing.
Wow.
Non-negotiable. And I learned a really good work ethic from my dad.
Okay.
Like that was the only thing that was instilled in me. You get a job at 12 years old. I've never not had a job since I was 12. You're responsible for, making money and animals and just getting up early and getting shit done. But then I rebelled when I got to the alcohol and the boys and all the other things.
10 years.
Yeah.
Were you a good student at high school?
No.
Academically?
No. I'm not academic. I have ADHD. I have Tourette's. I have dyslexia. I know he's like, what? Didn't know that. So I was on a lot of heavy medication through school. I was very disruptive. Anyone who's experienced trauma, like you can't, a lot of those side effects or maladaptive coping behaviors, I was hyperactive constantly. My school reports would say things like, if Bobbie can keep one finger on the chair, she's okay. I love academia now. I love studying now. But as a child, I just was not in the right environment. So I rebelled against it and I hated school, I hated college, and I hated university.
So you went to university?
I did.
You were able to get to university, though, with those issues.
I piggybacked off a rugby scholarship.
So you played rugby as well. Oh, God, you are so interesting. It's like I don't even know where to start. Keep going. So wait up. So you piggybacked on a rugby scholarship to get to university. So growing up in the country, let's recap a little bit. Growing up in the country, separated family, stepmother, unfortunate, traumatic experience.
Yes.
Teen years, partying, self-harm,
Yes.
boys, all that, the whole 9 yards. When did you find women's rugby?
So I was riding every day, that strict, like you wake up, you go down to horses, you go to school, you come home, you ride horses. My whole life was horses. And then at about 13 years old, I started socially drinking, and it was very normal. Like we'd go to the pub and I'd drink beer at that. It was very normal with like the hunting. I was in like a very hunting community. We'd drink fox hunting. For someone who was a vegan for 2 years, it's really odd now to admit, but
No way.
it's big in the UK. So I'd miss school
send
and
the
go.
beagles out. You get the beagles onto
Foxhounds, yeah. And you ride your horse
Foxhounds.
behind them. You have the horn.
You did all that.
I did all of that, yeah. Pony club.
I'm just trying to picture it.
So then when I was at school, I started just rebelling a little bit. And my geography teacher, Mrs. Newell, her name was, she was the captain of the Scottish women's rugby team, believe it or not. And I was tiny. I was a really small, I'm still a tiny-ish human, but I was really small, in like that really petite girl, the smallest in her class. And she was like, we're going to start a women's rugby club at lunchtime. My dad was like, sign up, you should go. Like, you're tiny, you need to learn to like
Be strong.
be strong and be tough and fight for yourself. So I signed up and I loved it. And I was like, this is fucking cool. Like I get to tackle people and throw a ball, and that's where it started. So at that point, riding was my main priority. Rugby was just thing I'd fit in. And it started to kind of shift slightly. I started realizing that horses was just consuming my life. I didn't want to ride before school, after school. I wanted to be able to go and have drinks after school. I wanted to go to parties. So I started rebelling a lot from that. And then I started playing rugby for like my local club, and then I would play for county, and then I got picked for England under 16s.
No shit.
And then I got to like play at Twickenham, which is like the huge stadium in London. And then I got selected, well, not selected, I applied to be the first ever woman to get accepted to what's called a BTEC rugby diploma. So in the UK, if you're naughty at school and you don't want to do your A-levels, you can leave and go to like a college for 2 years.
Gotcha.
And because I hated academia,
Yeah.
didn't want to do school, so I was like, well, I'm leaving. And so I applied to do this rugby BTEC at Hartbury College. It's a really famous college, sports and equine college. And they'd never, ever had a woman on the course. But I guess they were like, okay, sweet, progressive time. So they accepted me. So I spent 2 years. So I went to uni early. I went to uni when I was under 18 for 2 years at a residential college, and I was the only female with 182 guys. I'd just let you use your imagination for how that went for those 2 years. So I had a very unique experience where I went and studied full-time rugby for 2 years.
With all men.
All men.
Did you experience sexism?
Yes and no. Half of you become like the sister figure to them, and the other half of them that were immature and didn't like it, yes, a lot of bullying, a lot of sexism.
Hit-ons?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had a part of the campus called Fanny Alley. I didn't
does
live in
that
Fanny
mean?
Alley.
Fanny Alley, where they just go and hook up with people.
Yeah, because it was a residential equine and sports college. So because I was the only female on the rugby sports section,
Yeah.
I made friends with a lot of the equine people there. So even my best friends today, females, yeah, they're all like females.
So the equine students and the rugby students would meet in Fanny Alley.
Yeah, well, the equine students would live in Fanny Alley.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's mental now.
Okay, and the boys would get over there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a residential. Who lets 16-year-old, 17-year-old, and 18-year-old children live together at college for 2 years? That's wild.
Did you like the male attention?
Yeah, I felt pretty comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Felt safe?
Felt safe. I went through my promiscuous, I'm going to sleep with everyone, take my power back stage. So that was a wild 2 years for me. But because I did that course, I then applied to a university to study like sports and exercise science, exercise physiology, they call it here.
Yeah.
And I piggybacked off that BTEC in rugby and applied for like one of the rugby unis to get a half scholarship to go. And that's how I got into uni, because I definitely wouldn't have got into that with my grades. I was shit.
Wow.
And then when I was at uni, I met a guy who was like, I'm from Hong Kong. And I was like, where's that? And then I started dating him. And then that's how I moved to Hong Kong.
That was my next question.
And then that's how my life just took these random twists and turns.
You're like the dream guest. I don't even have to ask. So, yeah, really. So you moved to Hong Kong. Was that the rich guy?
No, that was many men after
So
that.
what was that guy doing in Hong Kong that you met? Was he working there?
He was born there. Yeah, he was born there. He was a British expat. His dad was actually the CEO of Shangri-La Hotels.
Oh, yeah.
So
Stadium one.
also pretty wealthy. A great family. We're still friends.
So, sorry, but just go back a bit. How'd you meet him, though?
We met in a research studies lecture for students that were failing.
He was studying at university.
He was studying at the same uni I was at in Wales in the UK. So random. I don't know why he went from Hong Kong to Wales. Yeah, Cardiff, yeah.
I've been there.
And met in this random lecture for like students that were failing, believe it or not.
I don't believe it.
And started dating. And then he was like, I'm from Hong Kong. And I'd literally never heard of it. Like when I said I'm from like the countryside, white, aristocratic, pikey, like I literally had never even been to London, I don't think.
I thought a pikey was like a gypsy.
Yeah, my family are half like aristocratic white people and then the other half gypsies.
On your dad's side?
Dad.
Or on your dad's side or your mum's side?
They just hang around with a lot of pikeys and gypsies from the traveller community because of
Gotcha.
horses. Yeah, the horses is the common denominator here.
That's a pretty big subculture in England, isn't it?
It is.
I don't know if it exists here as much.
I don't
We
think
just
the
have
same.
bogans.
Yeah.
I think because our
Bogans are
government
like-
housing situation's so good, people don't have to do that.
I don't know what the equivalent of bogans are. Like a chav in the UK?
Chav. It's people who live in government housing generally. I really don't want to generalise or stereotype.
Yeah. I don't want to
I don't want to do
generalise.
that, but I just did it. So yeah, you met him, then got you to Hong Kong, and is that when you found work there quite easily?
Yes.
In the exercise physiology realm.
Yeah, so obviously I got my degree. So I'd met him, went out and visited. It was like, holy shit balls. There's like 10 people from 10 different countries. This is wild. I'd never met like someone outside of England. Apart from like an all-inclusive holiday to Benidorm, which I'd been on with my family like every year, or like Spain or Portugal. I hadn't met anyone outside of like Europe. So I went to Hong Kong and I met like Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Australian, Kiwis, Maldives, like Middle Eastern people. It was like my mind fucking blew up. And I literally went home from that 2-week holiday in Hong Kong and was like, Dad, I'm moving to Hong Kong. And he was like, okay, sweet. So I had 2 years left to graduate. So I graduated and then I literally just fucking left to Hong Kong like 2 weeks after I graduated. And then I left like 8 years later
Wow.
to come to Australia.
Hong Kong did a lot for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then while you were there, you met the really
I
rich
met the
guy.
really rich guy. I started my healing. I met my now baby daddy. I think I went there when I was 21, right? Like
Gotcha.
that's the age where you think you know everything, but you don't know jack shit.
Truth.
And so I've been thrust from this village in the UK to one of the biggest cities and countries in the world, smallest countries, biggest cities in the world in terms of population. More money than you've ever, like, I was earning like £3.50 an hour at my garden centre, and I've gone to earning like 20, well, I don't know what the equivalent is, but like a lot of money for a 21-year-old in Hong Kong, not paying rent, like just living this baller life with no responsibility, where everyone's like got a club membership and you have a driver and you have a live-in helper, and like it's fucking wild. And it swallowed me up, right? Like I wasn't prepared for it. So that's why I went down a bit of a...
Too exciting.
Too exciting.
So you threw rugby away when you moved there?
For a bit, and then I started playing it again, maybe like a year or 2 years into that. Basically, when I moved there, I was in like so end of uni and early Hong Kong years, I was really spiraling. I wasn't training, I wasn't fit, I was taking a lot of drugs, partying, just in with the wrong crowd, not healing all the shit that I should have been healing. And about 2.5 years into living in Hong Kong, that's when I met that guy and started like healing all that shit. And that's when I started playing rugby again. I started training again. Already had my degrees. I started working at like a physio clinic, and my life just got progressively better from there.
Yeah. Yeah, and your relationship with Austin started to flourish. And it's still flourishing because you're at this stage where you're having a child. And you talked about how you've been to all extremes in your life, you know, like heavy partying to the woo-woo, woke as fuck kind of person. And do you feel like your desire to become a mother is symbolic of your feeling of balance and you found your counterpoint a little bit? That's why you feel ready, maybe?
Yeah, I think you're kind of on the money there. I've always wanted to be a mum, but I've been terrified of it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that. Like, a lot of my experiences have made me feel like I can't be a mum because of what happened to me. You know, how am I going to keep this child safe? I can't do that. And finding Austin, he was probably the first man that I felt like broody, clucky, of like, oh, I could be like, you could be the father of my kids. Like, I feel safe. You know, he really makes me feel like I can be feminine and be looked after, because I used to see being looked after as weak. You know, I used to be like, I don't fucking need any man. I got my shit together. I don't need that shit. I can do it all, you know? And that was the armor that I built up. And he was the first guy that I really, even with my ex-partner, the super wealthy guy, like, I always had my guard up. You know, I always had like a secret card bank account that I wasn't showing him. And I always had what we call one foot in the door syndrome. And I actually brought it into my relationship with Austin at the beginning. We had to work really hard to get rid of this. Right. Of this constant like, well, as soon as things go wrong, I don't fucking need this shit. Fuck you. Like,
easy exit.
Yeah. I had to work really hard to get rid of that. He's the first guy that just stayed around when I would throw that game of like, fuck this shit. I don't need this. I'm not going to take responsibility here. It's all you. I don't need this shit. And he'd be like, okay, well, I'm still here when you come back from having a tantrum. Oh, you didn't go anywhere. And then eventually it was like, you got to stop that shit. Like,
did he come from a secure family background?
No. Not
Interesting, because I've found in my life, I know characters like that who are rock solid.
He is rock solid.
Yeah, and I can tell, like, just in the interactions I've had with him, he's a rock solid sort of guy. But generally the ones that I've met in the past, those people have had, you know, they've never needed or wanted for anything. Mum and dad are still together, relatively happy, and had a very secure upbringing. And, yeah, I think there's something to be said about them.
I agree.
But he hasn't.
Yeah. I question this with him. We talk about it a lot.
Yeah, right.
Because he's never really had mental health issues. He's very secure in himself. He's very switched on. He presents himself as 2.4 happy family. You're right. And when I ask him about it and we kind of explore it, he realized, or he said it's from his dad. His dad instilled into him, like, I don't have nothing, so you better work fucking hard to get everything.
Gotcha.
And his dad sacrificed everything for them. Like, they had nothing. They were sleeping on the floor, sharing a bed. They didn't even have a TV. Like, they had nothing. His dad left his mom when they were like, I think a bit older than me, 5 or 6, took custody of them, moved from New Zealand.
So another one where the dad took custody.
Yes. He grew up without a mom.
That's become, I think that's less common.
Yeah, definitely. He grew up without a mom. His dad raised him, very, very strict dad, sent him to Catholic school.
I didn't realize I didn't realize how many tattoos you had. Sorry, Anyway, keep going. Keep going. So his mum, what, sorry?
His dad took custody of them. His mum's Malaysian. His dad's from New Zealand. So he was born in New Zealand, living in New Zealand. His mum went to study a PhD in the UK or in, I think somewhere, I don't know the full story. Anyway, he ended up living in Australia with his dad and his brother, starting over from scratch. They had nothing. And he's really naturally book smart. Like, he's the guy that just gets A stars, doesn't have to fucking study, can like photograph it. I know it pisses me off too.
I hate him. And he's good looking.
He's right.
God damn it.
He literally has everything. He's good looking. He's intelligent, good memory, tall, great, like can look at a barbell and put muscle on.
It's making me sick.
Never gets fat, doesn't get hangovers.
He's actually literally the strongest guy in the gym too. Since I've been
and he's
in the gym,
really nice as well.
No,
he's not like one of those people that look like that and they're not nice. He's genuinely a really kind.
There's got to be something, man. There's got to be something. I'm going to find some dirt on him. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, look, I won't keep you much longer. I'm really trying to I'm prying you a lot. And thanks for being so open.
That's okay.
I know it's hard. Like, I'm starting to learn that it's challenging and to be so open, you know. You seem to do it quite effortlessly, but I've come to learn that it's quite a big deal. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to ask you about how you broke your back.
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
So, moved to Hong Kong playing rugby, dedicated the latter part of my teens and my early 20s to playing rugby. And I really wanted to play for Hong Kong.
Gotcha.
get this international cap. And you have to live there and train there full time for 3 years to get a cap for them to get picked.
Yeah.
So I did that, committed for 3 years. And I finally got picked to play for rugby. Like you get into the development squad.
Yeah.
And then they cut it from like 30 down to 16, down to 20. I made it down to like the final 22. And I was going to get my first international cap. So I got selected. You get like presented your shirt. You're officially selected. You play for Hong Kong. Awesome. And then we had a training game against, I can't remember who it was. Was it a Japanese team or something? Anyway, I ruptured my MCL in the first training game. First time I got to put on the Hong Kong jersey. And I was like, fuck this. I give up. Like I quit rugby. As you would. And then I started CrossFit. Turns out I'm way better at CrossFit than I ever was at rugby.
Interesting.
So in like 1 year, I went from like new to the sport of CrossFit to like competing and representing Hong Kong and being like I think I was like the 3rd fittest woman in the country at one point.
Damn.
And like the 10th fittest in the whole of Asia out of like 3,000 women. So that's all of, China, Philippines.
Wow.
Hong Kong. Yeah. And so I was training a lot. This was my new thing. This was like when I met, just before I met Austin. So I was kind of getting my shit together. I was in that relationship, still recreationally taking a lot of cocaine and hiding it. Like I was functioning, and I was a full-time athlete at the same time. It's really odd. So because I wasn't drinking, I'd literally just be training in the gym, taking cocaine, or weighing and measuring my food because I had a eating disorder. Really odd experience. And I'd use this thing as this way to like take back my control. Again, a lot of this was stemming from my like, hyper independence, tomboy masculinity thing, being strong, rugby muscles, like it all adds up. Being one of the lads, playing rugby, gym, all of this. And I was overtraining, was like under recovering. I wasn't eating enough. I was like shredded as fuck. I looked like one of those people on stage, like it was mental. And I was just getting back pain. Like I was just getting pain and I was ignoring it. And then I have something called AS. It's called ankylosing spondylitis. It's an autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
It just means that the connective tissues in and around your spine, they start to attack itself.
Oh, wow.
So I have to be careful with like some of the foods that I eat. And if it gets bad, I have to take like steroid injections and immune suppressants.
Like a virus in the ligaments.
It's
I've heard that's a thing.
It's a chromosomal defect, I think. I don't know. It's like my mom has it or had it. My brother has it. I have it. You're born with something called HLA-B27.
Okay.
You detect it from a blood test. Basically, it means your immune system's too good. So my immune system like attacks itself sometimes.
Damn.
Yeah. So when I get sick, people are like, oh, have some turmeric. I'm like, I don't need that shit. My immune system's too good.
And it's Macca's.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, had an accident, like I tripped in the gym and I fractured and dislocated my spine at the same time. L4, L5, S1.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So from falling, just from tripping.
Well, I was underneath a heavyweight. So I was doing a back squat. It was like 122 kilos. Yeah, it was heavy. I was really strong at that point. I was training like 4 or 5 hours a day, 6 days a week, competing full time, working in a physio clinic. Like my whole life was just revolved around. Like I had an athletic identity that was like, I'm only worthy if I'm like the best at everything. I'm only worthy if I'm the best rugby player, the leanest girl, the best abs, the most unique, crazy chick who does all the crazy shit with the craziest tattoos. And like I had face piercings and like always dyeing my hair different colors as a teenager. Like this all was part of this personality that I created as a way to like take back control. And overnight, when I broke my back, that was probably rock bottom for me. So all the stuff that I'm talking about, that moment there was rock bottom because overnight I lost my job, I lost my athletic identity, I lost my physical body. I couldn't walk, had to go and have surgery. Wow. I gained like 15 kilos, which on my tiny frame was like insane. It was like horrendous. I had full depression. That's what I really like coming back from that. I hit like rock bottom. And then I had like a moment. And that's when I started to get my shit together.
Okay. How long was the recovery?
Probably a year in total. Gotcha. Yeah. A year in total from like the surgery. I've got like a cage in my spine. They actually went through the front. So it looks like I've had a C-section already, but I don't. And they put a cage in. They took a bone graft from my hip and they basically grow your spine between where the fracture is because I have what's called a spondylolisthesis. So your vertebrae slips forwards as well as fracturing and breaking.
Gotcha.
So they put pins in, they put some bone in, and then it like fuses together.
Insane.
So it's insane, yeah.
It's so insane what they can do.
It's mental.
Yeah. I really am. You're talking about how you got all shredded and like you were like super fit, shredded and good. Did you like your body at that time?
No.
You didn't?
This is where the female empowerment stuff comes in.
Yes, that was the transition I was looking for. Is this the kind of stuff you relay to your female empowerment clients?
Yes. So after hitting rock bottom from that, I think there was a moment, I can't remember exactly, but there was a moment where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Gotcha.
You know, like it was multiple moments. It wasn't like just one. It was like over a period of weeks, and I was like, this is too much. I'm in too much pain. Here's the thing about a serious injury. No one fucking cares. Like the world, no one fucking cares about you. Like people say they care about you for a day and they bring you flowers. But like honestly, the world fucking carries on and you're just stuck in hospital and everyone's got a job and mortgage and bills to pay for. Yeah. And so it's just you against you. And I remember for a brief period just being like, I can't do it. It's too much. Like what are my options here? And having a history of self-harm, like those were the thoughts that I was struggling with. But I just knew that like I wouldn't go through with anything. It was never like a choice of that for me. And I just knew that like, fuck, no one's going to come and save me. No one's coming to save me. Like there's literally the hardest decision is like it's fucking you. No one's going to come and do this work for you. So stop feeling sorry for yourself. Poor fucking you broke your back, you lost your job, you lost all this, you had to pay this surgery, you got a fucking $100,000 credit card debt, like it's your fault. As in like right now, it is your fault. You are moping around feeling sorry for yourself. I remember just being like, quit feeling sorry for yourself. And it was like, I remember the day I just got a piece of paper and I had to wear this massive brace, like this metal brace from like here down to here, so I couldn't like take it off. I had to work for like 23 hours a day for like months. It was fucking so shit. In Hong Kong, it's like 36 degrees every day. Like it's rats. And I just thought, okay, what can I do? I was like, I'm just gonna like make sure I do 10 breaths every day, lying on the floor.
Oh, is that what it started as?
Yeah. I wasn't even allowed to get off my bed for like 10 days. You're like tied while the bone graft starts to fuse. Yeah. You're not allowed to get up. So you're just in bed with like a catheter, bedpan, like you can't get up to go to the bathroom, nothing. Like it's fucked.
So that was your initial exercise. I'm just going to try and do 10 deep breaths.
Yeah, like lie down on the floor and get back up again. This is coming from a professional athlete 2 weeks before. So I've lost my entire identity, my entire sense of worthiness on this planet stemmed from being the strongest woman, the fittest woman, the leanest woman, the most amazing coach that you've ever experienced. Like I took my job very seriously, very independent. I was seen as a leader for other female athletes. Little did they know I was actually a functioning cocaine addict, but they didn't know, right? Like, this is the fucked up thing. No one knew what was going on in my personal life. And having that taken from you overnight just shattered my reality. Yeah. And then I rebuilt it super slow, like 10 breaths today. I'm going to walk to the bathroom and back. I'm going to try and eat without weighing and tracking my food because I was addicted to weighing and tracking my food because it's the only way I could have some sort of control, and it was terrifying. And coming back from that, you don't have a choice. This is the thing. You either learn to love yourself or you fucking sit in loathing every day. That's a shit place to be. Yeah. And a lot of people get stuck there. And when I realized that it's my responsibility, like no one's coming to save me, I really did find something then. Like I even wish I could find that part of me now. Like it was so determined. Like nothing was going to stop me to get my shit together in that moment. And that's when I started understanding what it meant to be an empowered woman, where you really create this metric of self-worth from a source inside of you and not external to you. Because I'd only known taking my metric of self-worth from something external to me to that point, ever. From horse riding to being part of the boys to rugby to physical attributes. You know, I was never smart at school, so it was always playing up. It was behavior. It was always something external to me that validated my worthiness or got me attention, whether that was sexuality or promiscuity. Like, it was always external. And in that moment, there was nothing external. I had nothing. I had a fucking broken back. And I had to figure out how to feel empowered from something that was inside of me. And it was there all along, is what I came to realize. It was always there. I just couldn't see it. And that is when I started what's now Built with Bobbie. That's when I started, you know, getting healthier and fitter and meditating every day and doing mindset coaching courses and becoming a nutrition coach and learning counseling and realizing that everything we could possibly desire is already within us. And I just hijacked that. And it wasn't until that catalyst of having it all taken away. Really, that was it. Like, when you talk about my healing journey, like the conversation with Austin, it was that breaking the back. Because during that time, I got close to Austin. This is all around that same time. It was really that experience that I had no choice to go through that forced me to realize that I can do it. It's in me.
And it's turned into such a positive thing. How would you say it's going? How's it all going, what you're doing now? Just like, is it sustaining you a living?
Yeah. This tattoo, actually, it says, "Was I deceived, or did a sable cloud turn forth her silver lining on the night?" You know, essentially saying every cloud has a silver lining. I truly believe, conveniently, that breaking my back was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Okay, you're the dream guest. I was going to ask. It's like you're answering my questions before I even ask them. Wow, the greatest thing.
Without a doubt, that breaking that back was the shake up, the wake up, the reality of, like, no one is coming to save you. You got to get your shit together here. This relationship is not serving you. You are not happy. You have been outsourcing your power to everything and everyone external to you. You are piggybacking on other people. You are not happy in your career. Like, you're making a living off people changing their physical aesthetics, knowing that that's not going to make people happy.
What are some common themes with your current clients coming to you?
So
are they? Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, to give background, like, I work as a female empowerment coach and disruptive business coach. So I work with disruptive business. It's like disruptive marketing. So the journey was, I started female empowerment coaching, and it simply happened like this. I was helping women with their physical exercise physiology or rehab, or they wanted to tone up or get stronger or recover from an injury, whatever. And I started to notice that, let's say I would see them 3 times a week.
Yeah.
I would have to say, okay, well, for 2 sessions, we're actually going to go to a coffee shop. We're going to talk. And for 1 session, we'll go to the gym. And I was getting more results from these clients. They were happier. They weren't necessarily getting skinnier, which is what they wanted. They thought they wanted it. But we would talk for 2 hours a week instead of train for 2 hours a week. And I would get these clients just constantly like, holy shit, this has changed my life. And I started to realize, like, yeah, everyone's just paying for personal trainers and going on diets because they think that changing their external is going to make them happier. But
interesting.
Changing the internal makes you happier.
It's like that analogy of give someone a fish to eat for a day, but teach them how to fish to eat for their life.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is that the same sort of vibe?
Yeah, exactly. So I was teaching these women tools because, you know, anyone can go to the gym. Just fucking Google it. What do you need to do? Just go. Get the motivation, right? And with that, me and Austin started a company called Transcend Performance.
Yeah.
It was mind, body, and soul transformation. So we did mindset coaching. We did the physical coaching, rehab. He has the same degree as me. and spirit. We introduced like spirituality and growth and healing to this. And it was really powerful. And that was the company we kind of brought over with us when we moved from Hong Kong to Australia. And then COVID and all that shit happened. Got rid of that, started Built with Bobbie, started purely female empowerment coaching. And I created something called, what was it called? Journey to Empowerment back in the day. It was really a journey that I would take women on, teaching them from day one the most important thing, I think. The most important, it doesn't matter what you want to achieve, what transformation, whether you want to heal eating disorder, physical trauma, emotional trauma, you're going for a divorce, you're unhappy, you got a shopping addiction, you're a perfectionist, it doesn't matter. You're going to therapy, counseling, whatever. The most important thing is if you can't build integrity with yourself, you can't do shit. If you can't trust that you will do what you say you're going to do, it doesn't matter how many therapy sessions you go to, it doesn't matter how much counseling or coaching, like only you can show up for yourself when the alarm goes off.
Yes.
Only you can not have that food when you're fasting, right? And so the number one thing I would teach my clients is integrity. And we might spend a month learning that, and it would be slow progress. But the moment we captured their ability to build integrity with themselves, anything they wanted to change after that was easy.
There's so many people who can't do it. Like for me, I think because my background's similar to yours in a lot of ways, had to work for everything, everything. And it's just so ingrained in me. So showing up to the gym when I don't want to go is just no thing.
Yeah.
But I take it for granted. And I wonder why there's so many people who can't do it. And I guess it's circumstantial. They've had different lives. It's hard to accept sometimes.
Yeah, they've never learnt to endure hardship. They've never built integrity. Some people just don't build resilience, right? Believe it or not, the people that have experienced the hardest things in life are the most resilient, right? So you often find that the people that have had to work really hard for something, they've naturally built up their resilience muscle. So when it comes to wanting stuff later on, they already have that muscle there. So it's just a case of like, hey, it already exists. Let's just redirect your behavior.
Yeah, is that the common theme you're finding with your clients?
Absolutely.
Just their lack of resilience?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say lack of resilience. I'd say that their lack of integrity with themselves. They don't trust that they can do what they say they're going to do because they've inherently broken that trust to themselves over and over and over again. You know, you say you're not going to drink, you drink. How many years did you say, oh, I need to quit drinking, I need to stop drinking, I'm going to be different? And we don't do it, right? And because there's not really any serious ramifications, we just keep doing it.
Yes.
But there is serious ramifications because you're proving to yourself that you can't do shit. You're a sack of shit. Like you can't trust yourself. When you can't trust yourself, you can't achieve anything.
Yeah, undoing those behaviors takes so much work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like neuroplasticity. We're completely reprogramming new synapses in your brain. You're retraining those thoughts to choose this pathway when this pathway feels really hard and uncomfortable and scary, and you can just keep doing what you've done. Even though it doesn't serve you, even though everything that you're doing is making you unhappy, your mind would rather keep doing that than actually try something new that is possibly going to make you happier but is going to feel a bit unfamiliar.
Wow. So good, Bobbie. So good. Where to next for you? Where do you think it's going to take you, or where do you want to go next?
Oh, good question. Well, motherhood is obviously imminent. That's coming in March. So right now...
Yes. Do you have a date out of curiosity?
21st of March.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
21st of March. So that is kind of playing on my mind right now. I will say I'm, quite an independent person still. I work for myself. My business now has shifted into what we call disruptive business coaching. So I help other humans who have realized they want to help other people in the service-based industry. Ooh. And I help them manage their businesses, manage their marketing, increase their sales, grow their businesses, scale their businesses. Okay. So what I'm doing right now is I'm essentially nesting and I'm setting up my business so that I can be more passive.
Okay.
So that I can still work whilst being a mum. And it's really odd. I just recently, in the last few weeks, I think since my mum's passing, I have just realized, you know what, I'm going to just do this properly.
Okay.
Like I'm going to take a full 6 months mat leave and I'm going to just be a mum. And that is
100%.
That is like scary to admit because to me that's like weakness. It's like, oh, you're not independent. you know, not get your shit together. You can't just be a mum. That's not like a real job.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm excited to like throw myself into it and just be a mum for 6 months.
100%. I can only speak to my own experiences with parenting, so I don't want to be that person who goes, I'm not going to give you advice.
No, please do. I actually love it.
I'm just going to speak to my own experiences
Yeah.
with it. For me, I was never someone that felt like they wanted to have children. I was like never that. Never had that desire. I had friends that were like, yeah, I can't wait to be a dad and stuff like that, but that wasn't me. But once the children came, now that's all I want to do. And my priorities just shifted dramatically. It's all you want to do. But it is a very different experience for a man. I am convinced that it's not in a man's nature to be paternal. We have to work at it and really apply ourselves to it. My experience with it, I feel like it is more natural for a woman. They do carry the child in their body for 9 months. So the bonding's already occurring and they're already coming to this place of acceptance of sacrifice and what they're going to have to let go of. Whereas for a man, I see a lot of men, and myself included, and I've now really analysed it, a lot of men don't want to let go of their old life, you know?
Yes. Austin is in that position right now where he's unwilling to let go.
Yeah, and I didn't want to, but it's not they also have a desire they want to be there for their family, they want to provide, and they want to do all that stuff. They do. But they think, and again, my experience was I thought too that I could not let go of my old life and have the best of both worlds. But I learnt that it doesn't work like that.
So, okay, I have a question for you now.
That was my journey with it.
If I could take some advice back to Austin as a first-time dad.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to speak for him, but that's exactly how he describes it right now. He feels like he can just have the best of both. And actually, we haven't had children up until this point purely because he hasn't been ready to let go of his lifestyle. He's like, I don't want to give up. Yeah. Whereas from the women's point of view, we feel like life hasn't started until it's such a difference, right? Like I feel like my life hadn't started until I had kids, whereas he feels like his life was ending when he had kids. And
this is why so many, you see it, even yourself, so many families split up when the kids are under 5.
Yeah.
It's such that period of time. Again, just looking at analysing it and seeing other situations, it's around that time. Yeah, people don't want to let go. I would actually love to homeschool kids, and I struggle as a teacher that I spend all my days with other people's children. Why aren't I spending that time teaching my own children? But the way our society is structured is that's what you do. We pay other people to have our kids in daycare.
What's your thoughts on homeschooling? I'm interested.
I think it's brilliant. I think we need more of it.
Yeah?
Yep. Public education is broken and it needs complete reform.
Because I'm also curious about homeschooling. I love the idea of it. I'd love to do it. And Austin is
my friend
cautious.
Does it. My friend does it with his daughter, and they're in a community of other homeschoolers. So it's not like the kid is isolated from that social interaction, because you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, oh, don't homeschool them. They're going to be they'll become socially inept. It's not true. In fact, the opposite. They have their little community of homeschoolers, and the parents all get together.
And they're not little shits.
And then the other parents are teaching the other parents' kids, and they're getting that. And then they can actually be a bit more selective with who their kids are interacting with.
That's what I
yeah.
That's what I meant about little shits. That's what I like about it. Like having control over who your kids interact with.
Yeah, and the flexibility to open them up to more life experience and cultural experience and travel experience is way more profound. Yeah, they're not bound by these term dates and structures.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but it's work. It's hard. Like you have to work. It's exhausting.
These are decisions that I'll have to make over the next few years.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's something I'd love to be able to say to all new dads is if you're completely hopeless and you don't know what to do, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. I think that's the key. If I had to say anything.
That's fine. You did good.
I'm scared.
You get some lashback.
I'm scared of repercussion. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit. No. It is what it is. That's what I'm saying. No more fence sitting.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been epic.
It's It's been a good
Thank
conversation,
you so
hasn't
much
it?
for
You're
your
welcome.
time and energy. Is there anything you want to end on?
No. You can come find me on Instagram if you want to know where I'm at.
Yeah, tell everyone where we can find you and how people can.
Well,
do you
unless
wanna
you're
promote
interested
yourself?
unless you're a small business or an online service provider, or you're interested in female empowerment or marketing. I call it moist marketing because I'm a disruptive business coach.
Moist marketing.
Yes.
That word freaks me out.
Yeah. Well, that's what that's
Why?
the energy I bring to marketing. It's like juicy. I froth over marketing. It's such a powerful tool. Language and copywriting. It is.
Psychology.
Yeah, it is. And, from the girl who couldn't spell and was not academic to the girl who's now obsessed with language and persuasive content and communicating your values, and I just froth over it. Anyway, you can find me on Instagram. It's built_with_Bobbie, and that's BOBBIE.
Epic.
Built with Bobbie.
Built with Bobbie, everybody. So Miss Bobbie Poulton.
Yes.
Everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.